Welcome to another episode of DD on the Spot. As always, I'm your host, Ryan Johnson. And before I get to our guests here today, I'd like to remind everyone that if you enjoy this content, to please give a like and subscribe down below. I'd greatly appreciate it. Well, first of all, you should recognize our guest. We have Stefanie on the podcast again. She was on almost 2 years ago. I mean, good God, how the time's flown. But she's coming back on again to give us an update on what she's been up to. And I mean, obviously, being in Canada, I love to talk to Canadians that are on too. But weirdly enough, she doesn't have snow and I have snow on the ground. So, even though, Minnesota is basically like the 13th province, it's just funny. But most importantly, she's our current guest again. Stefanie, thank you so much for coming back on.
Thank you. That was a wonderful introduction. Yeah, there's no snow here yet. Thank goodness.
You realize you just jinxed yourself just by saying that.
Honestly, I don't mind snow. I don't mind it, to be honest. Like, I don't drive, so for me, like, it's not too big of a deal, and my dog freaking loves it. So,
Oh, so you just live in a city where you can just take public transit basically the whole time?
yeah,
Yeah, that would be nice. I mean, saving on car payments and gas and stuff, and yeah. But the only thing I mean, I like snow too, but the only problem I have is if it snows before Halloween. It's like, come on, like what's the point of that? I mean, even though I know no one's going to be really trick or treating out this year, at least in my neck of the woods, it's like, it's just a funky time that we're living in. But like I said, it's been over a year and a half since we last talked, and looking on your Instagram, you've made some changes too. I mean, obviously, everyone changes over this amount of time, plus with the pandemic, but why don't you we'll get right into it. How's it been since we last talked? It's been a year and a half. What have you been up to? What is it? How have things been going?
year and a half ago, what was I doing?
So
Okay,
say it was February of 2019. So yeah, a little bit more than a year and a half, but just by a couple months. Yeah.
so I actually finished a program that I was in. So I was doing holistic nutrition. So now I am like a certified holistic nutritionist. At that time, I think I was still working at like a corporate gym, but now I work as like fully as like an online coach. So that was actually really good timing because the pandemic happened probably 6 months after I transferred over to online coaching. So I did online coaching, and then 6 months later, the pandemic happened. So I'm like, I got into this in the right time and not being like, not being part of like, all the personal trainers that, basically lost their jobs and all their clients. So I was really lucky to be on just doing like online programming and stuff and just being with a really good, business that, well, I work for someone else, but still like just being online and just having everything virtual is just like wow, I really got in at the right time. So
Believe it or not, we've heard vastly more stories of that than people that got the short end of the stick. So I don't know, maybe I'm just picking the right people, but yeah, the vast amount of stories that we've had are people like, oh, I made the life change, like just luckily a few months before the pandemic. But yeah, so I have not heard really any people that have like been unfortunately stuck with that. So that's at least a nice thing to hear. But what has your bodybuilding journey been like since we last talked over a year and a half ago?
yeah, a year and a half ago I was preparing for the Arnold amateur and I was doing figure. So since then, like I competed there, I got like a top 5 placement, so I did pretty good. Um and honestly, it was a lot of fun. I freaking loved the Arnolds. Like it was such a different experience and vibe. Like stepping on that stage, it was just so surreal. It was really awesome. But I did realize at that show that I was super tiny and I would need to grow a lot. And at that point, I was pretty much like, I like the amount of muscle mass I have, and I don't want to get any bigger because it's just not something I want. I want for myself. And my boyfriend was just like, "You looked like one of those bikini girls. If you were in bikini, you would have like probably won your class." And I was just like, "All right." And I started looking at bikini, and I did bikini before, and at the time, like when I was doing bikini, I was like a more muscular bikini girl, but bikini has like transformed into just like more muscularity. It's no longer like, oh, you can just step on stage in 6 months. Like it's a 5 year physique, right? So for myself and my body type, it matches more bikini now and where it's like the sport has grown, like the bodybuilding, it evolves, right? So for myself, I was just like, hey, like maybe I can go back to it. It looks like that's more of my body type, and I don't have to, kill myself trying to get bigger or, possibly, dabble into more anabolics or something like that. And I, for myself, I took holistic nutrition, and I just really wanted to focus on my health and maintain a physique that I was proud of and, healthy at, if that makes sense.
Was this before the wellness division became a thing? Because since you said you were a little bit bigger for a bikini girl, like the wellness division then would be like a perfect fit for you then.
That's what I was thinking of too. So like when I heard about the wellness division and like that was kind of like the time that it was coming out and my coach at the time was like, "Yeah, I was going to tell you to go and do it." But I was looking at the girls and I'm like, "Honestly, my legs are not that big and I don't want to grow my legs that big." And like I do carry a lot more muscle in my bottom half. Like growing my legs is an easier part, but for myself as a bodybuilder, I like the X frame. I like the balance. I like the symmetry. And for me, wellness is very bottom heavy and it's no longer that. Like I know women usually do carry a little bit more muscle, so they're going to be more leg dominant naturally, like in their lower half at least. But I really like the fact that, figure was balance, it was symmetry. It's top to bottom, you're balancing your physique, and that's kind of what I want, and bikini is basically like a softer, lower version of that. And wellness is just like very bottom heavy, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to grow into that. Like, I probably could. I'd go with my genetics and go into it, but I'm like, my legs aren't that big. Like, I carry a lot of fat in my legs, so I'm just like, yeah, they look big in my off season because that's where I carry most of my body fat, but they aren't that big once I lean down. Like, that's I don't know, it's like a figure bottom with like a bikini top. So I'm like, I like the X frame.
Mhm. Yeah. What would you say is the hardest thing that happened when when it comes from changing from figure to bikini? What was the hardest thing that you went through?
Not training my legs at all.
I
Yep.
wish I had that problem more than anything else in my life because my legs are my number one pet peeve. Where I was like, if I could just forget them and say screw them, I'm just gonna be top heavy for the rest of my life. I'd take being one of those guys that's just huge up top and then they can barely balance on their legs. But that would be but that would be hard too. But how? Oh, we got a dog. Okay, we got dog alert, everyone. Oh, cute dog. He was on the podcast last time, so of course he has to make an appearance on the next one. But how did you deal with that mentally? Because yeah, if it's a body, it's for women, legs are basically what upper body is for guys when it comes to how a lot of people care about them. So what was that like for you mentally, just getting used to that fact that like, hey, I can't make these things grow anymore for the division that I'm going in.
At first it was kind of fun because I'm like, oh, I've never really done this before. It's nice to, have a break off my legs and not really worry about doing these gruesome leg days when I'm in a hard deficit type of thing. But as the months went on, I started to find that I started really injuring myself, especially in my lower half, and my muscles were just getting super weak. Like I do like the part I liked about training legs is that I was super strong in my legs. So that was the fun part, right? So not being able to like go under a bar and fricking squat like, a couple plates or something like that was hard for me like after a while. But at first I was like, this is kind of fun. I get to really focus on, growing my shoulders and my weak areas. But then after a while, it's just like I started hurting myself and I could barely pick up my dog. And I was just like, what? Like I used to be able to squat so much and now I can barely pick up my dog. This is sad.
Well, for everyone out there, I mean, you do have a bigger dog. Like, if you were to say that and you had like my dog, then I'd be very concerned for you. But like, you have a big dog, so I mean, that's hard enough for a lot of people as is. But yeah, that's. I mean, it's just with the changing body parts. But did you have to change up your nutrition at all, knowing that you had to really tweak and adjust your body?
Yeah, that was another hard part. I was so used to eating a ton of protein all the time, and my protein got so low. It was like under a gram per pound, and just to try to decrease my muscle size, right? So I was starving for a bit. I was really, really like doing a lot of cardio and really like starving. Like I was so freaking hungry. It was ridiculous, but I did like how my physique was balancing out and I don't know, it was kind of worth it in the end.
You're talking to someone that absolutely hates cardio. So, what is your relationship with cardio like now that you've sort of gotten over that?
um I've always been an endurance athlete. I played soccer for really many, many years. So cardio for me is like usually pretty easy. But when you're doing 2 hours a day, it's gruesome. It got to a point where it was just so hard, especially during the pandemic with the lockdown. Well, we're still in the pandemic, but the lockdown and everything, like I had no access to cardio equipment. So my dog was so freaking fit. Like my dog was going on walks all freaking day long. So that was actually a really nice part. I got to really spend some quality time with my dog, and we spent at least, 2 hours a day of just walking together. And that was resistance walking because he would pull me.
Would he ever refuse to go on a walk because he was too tired?
Oh no,
Yeah.
no, never.
Our dog did that once, but then again, we did walk her 4 times that day. So, hey, that might have, just because we were bored too during the pandemic. But I have a I had to move back in with my parents. So literally I moved out 2 months and then I had to move back in because of the pandemic. So I really experienced that, nice 2 months of freedom basically before I had to come back in and, save more money. So that was nice. But anyway, we have a treadmill machine downstairs. So luckily, I was able to do some of that. But the only problem was, like you're talking about with those 2-hour cardio sessions. Oh yeah, he's back, everyone. Like with those 2-hour cardio sessions, I could only do 100-minute ones because that's how much the treadmill would go before it would automatically shut itself down after 100 minutes. But I ran out of movies to watch because like that's the only way you could get me doing cardio if I watch movies. But it got to a point where I did like 50 days out of 60. I was on a treadmill and I would walk too. I wouldn't, when I'm talking cardio for me, it's like power walking where I'd get like 9 miles in like 100 minutes. But yeah, it's interesting how this has all happened. But what was the pandemic really like for you? Because I know being in Canada, where I don't think it's been as bad as it is here. I mean, in Minnesota, luckily it hasn't been that bad really at all. But what has your overall experience been like with this pandemic? Because I mean, so many things have happened and it's affected people mentally just as much as it has physically. But what's your overall experience been like from this?
um Again, it was one of those things that I didn't think it was that bad at first. I thought like, "Oh, it's cool working out at home. It's a new challenge. I get to have fun." But it did get to some points where, I did like going to the gym to escape my house. And since I work from home already, like I was just constantly in my house and even working out in my house. And my room started being a workspace because like my mom was renovating, so I wasn't able to go downstairs. But it was a workspace, my workout space, somewhere where I sleep and recover. And it like I felt like I had no room to freaking breathe at one point. And it was hard because we were in lockdown till like June, July. Like our gym open till July. So I didn't get into a gym until then, but I made amazing progress. I'm not gonna lie. Like, my mind to muscle connection is so much better. I really focused on movement and focused on those like things that you kind of neglect. I was stretching more, improved my flexibility. So from like my body standpoint, it was a really nice way to just get that better mind muscle connection and work on those weak areas. But from mentality point, like, I felt like I was going stir crazy. It was fun at first, and then after a
Yeah.
while, "I'm over this."
Oh yeah, that's everyone. That was me too. Where like during the beginning, I was like, "Are you kidding me? I can just focus on podcasting now," because I was furloughed from my job, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? This is gonna be great." And then 2 weeks in, it's like, "Okay, let's get this over with." And then it lasted like 4 months, and then I'm like, "Okay, this is just yeah." It was just it was horrible. But one thing that I think might actually have been a positive thing for bodybuilders is the fact that with this lifestyle, you're gonna have a lot of chances where oh, come out with us and get a drink, come out and hang out with us. Oh no, I got to go work out. But during this pandemic, you're not gonna get those questions. So is that at least one positive thing, that you could at least focus on yourself more? You didn't have to worry about those social obligations that in a normal setting you would have had to have worried about.
Yeah, honestly, I don't really go out and drink or anything.
Oh, even like come out and get something to eat with us or something like that, or come out and do
I'm a
yeah,
homebody. It's so
yeah.
it's so terrible. I don't really go out that much even when it was not a pandemic. Like, my lifestyle didn't change too much, but I didn't like the fact of having that freedom of going into a coffee shop and working, or, just like walking around and not feeling like I have to, jump off the street when someone else walks there. It's more those things for me. I do keep to myself. My friend group is very small, and all my friends know that I do bodybuilding. And when I'm prepping, they don't. I've been doing it for so many years that they know. They don't even ask me like when they know I'm prepping. So for me, like those things weren't that bad. One thing that did happen though is my prep kind of got on hold, and then I started baking a lot. I was baking every single weekend. I made freaking Nutella donuts. I made all these weird different types of stuffed cookies and and that was hard because then I'm like, what am I gonna do with all of this? So staying on the diet was a little bit harder too.
Jeez. Well, and yeah, that's the biggest struggle I think a lot of people have, especially being by themselves. And a lot of people, they're not people are not meant to be that solitary. So yeah, a lot of people did struggle with the diet stuff among so many other things, but also with this, with all this that's been happening and stuff. It's it's just yeah, it's a time that I don't think it's ever been anything like that. I mean, I talked to my grandpa who's a World War II veteran. I asked him, I even said, like, have you ever experienced anything like this? And he's like, oh no, it's even weirder than anything I've been through. So I was like, okay, yeah, that doesn't show anything. But do you still have to wear a mask when you go to the gym and work out even today? What's that like? Because like I said, I have enough equipment where I can still work out at home, so I haven't been to a gym since then. But is it hard to work out in a mask? Because I've heard a lot of I've heard it's been like 50-50, where some people are like, oh, it's fine, it doesn't bother me as much, and then other people are like, I can't do it. Like it's too much.
Um, I'm okay if the gym environment is not overpopulated. So for myself, like I get really anxious just being around a lot of people in general. So it's probably why I'm more of a homebody. But like if the gym's really crowded and I have a mask, I feel like I'm double suffocating. So if the gym's really packed, it seems to affect me more. So I don't know if that's because more people are taking up my oxygen and I can't breathe because I have a mask on. There's so many people, and I'm like, pandemic, and I'm getting a little bit anxious. But when it's a really quiet gym, I do feel it doesn't bother me as much. So I don't know if it's like the factoring of just more people being in the gym and then having the mask and feeling like you can't breathe. Um, yeah, but like working out with it's okay. But if I were to PR or really try to push a set, I'm sorry, I'm taking my mask down a bit. Like I can't breathe.
Well, and especially for someone like me, where whenever I work out, I mean, I don't drink a gallon. I drink a lake, basically. I mean, you could have given my own private lake, and I drink. So for me, if I ever did that, I would have to cut a hole in and just have a tube attached the entire time through my mouth. So literally, so I wouldn't be, breathing in or out anything. But then literally just work. I could literally just suck on it whenever I needed it, because yeah, I drink way too much water when I work out. So that's and plus it's just
Then you're touching your face, going up and down, touching your face, right? So there's that too, and you're just like, oh, like I just touched something. Should I be touching my face? Like it's confusing. It's almost like the mask is making it less sanitary just from those factors if you're in a gym setting.
Well, yeah, because then people think that they're all immune to everything, so that they can do stuff that they probably normally wouldn't do if they didn't have a mask on. So it's a double edged sword for so many reasons. And but obviously, people, I'm not going to be one of those a holes that says don't wear a mask, but it's like, just be careful with them too. Don't be the person that thinks don't be the person that thinks that when no one's looking you can lick a pole or anything like that. But oh, as long as I wear a mask, it's fine. Boo. Just use common sense. But yeah, just so many things that have been happening. But even more than just everything else that's been happening in this too, it's just the uncertainty that people have. How have you been dealing with all this stuff mentally? Because, like you said, I mean, you're struggling to find cardio and stuff, but the mental side is impacting so many more people than the physical stuff.
Oh yeah. For myself, so I actually had this like New Year's resolution for myself. So in the past, like I've struggled with drinking and alcohol, and I decided in January 2020 that I was going to have a year of no drinking, no sort of.
Picked the wrong year with that one.
Oh, but honestly, I think I picked the right year because for myself, if that was the old me and a pandemic happened and I was still heavily drinking, I would have been faced all the time. Sorry, but like that's what it would have been. I would have, and I think I would have really struggled hard, and my mental mind state and taking care of myself physically would have really went down. So I'm kind of glad that I had that New Year's resolution because it kept me on top of it and not want to. Because I'm like, I already made this resolution for myself, and I'm like not trying to self-medicate, by drinking and doing other things. So for myself being sober for the whole year, it's actually been a blessing in disguise.
I would be lying if I said that there weren't times where I was just like looking at our alcohol shelf they would have downstairs and it's like just drink all of it. But no, I haven't. I haven't gone off script, but it's just yeah. I mean, well, plus I'm one of those people too where I don't drink beer. I just do the hard stuff because first of all, it gets you drunk quicker and it costs less. I'm one of those people where if I go to a party and I enter the room, I just said, give me 3 to 4 shots and I'll be good for the next few hours, basically. Then and then I'll be fine. Just get me started right off. So hey, that's just me. But yeah, it's for a lot of people. I know that they've really struggled with that too, and it's just yeah, this the hopelessness and the uncertainty, and who knows if it's because it is getting, especially in the U.S., it's getting a lot worse now, but luckily, like they said, a lot less people are dying because they have so much better ways of treating it. But yeah, it's so fascinating. But when you said like you put your prep on break, really, what was that like to deal with that mentally? Because for bodybuilders, your prep, I mean, that's your drug basically when it comes to competing and stuff like that. Like it's hard to put it off. So what was that like to put it off? And then were you just so excited to get it back on, or what was that mental adjustment that you had to make?
Well, for myself, I really took it as I like I said in January, I wanted to just be a year sober and everything. I was taking more this year of just being my best self, and when the time is right, I will step on the stage and I will be my best self, and that's all I really cared about. And I'm like, it will happen when it happens for me. Um, I wasn't. I don't know. It was like, "Oh, man, like, that sucks. I worked so hard." But then I was also just like, "No, like, I still got goals, and when I get to step on stage, like, I'm still working towards, this physique that I want, and I still have so many, ways I can improve, and, this just means more time to practice my posing. This means more time to just, like, fix those imbalances that I was talking about, and just really just own my craft. Like that's what I took it as. I didn't take it as like really a setback. I just like, oh, this just gives me more time to be even better. Because when I do step on stage, it's gonna be amazing.
No, and that's a great attitude to have with it, but sleep is one thing that's been just so iffy for so many guests that I've had on, especially during the pandemic, because if you're out of work and stuff, you don't have to get up early, so a lot of people sleep in. But what's this adjustment been like for you sleep wise? Because some people, they've gotten more sleep, some people they've gotten less sleep. But how's this overall been like for you when it comes to sleep this whole pandemic and this quarantine?
Well, like I said, I was working online and we actually got super busy. Like our business went it went like okay, we had like some people fall off a little bit in the beginning, but then halfway through that like lockdown, we had so many people signing up. I was doing more creative stuff too with like the people I work with, and like I control like a Facebook group and stuff like that. So like I was really like focusing on engagement, focusing more on the content that I'm producing as well. So it gave me more time to be creative. And for myself, if I ever want to fix my sleeping, I just don't take naps. And I try to, make myself tired. So do things that are going to make myself tired, even if it's mentally or physically, like reading a book, like doing things throughout the day. I still kept my schedule as is. I didn't try to stay away from that. So, like, for me, like, I was so motivated and I still had that, that goal in mind of stepping on stage eventually whenever it happens. So I wasn't like letting myself go. I was still really focused on that goal, and I had a lot of things set in place for me where I didn't really have room to, just steer off. I was very motivated and just like tunnel vision.
Whereas with me, I am going to bed usually around like an hour and a half to 2 hours later than I would have, before the pandemic. So it hasn't been that bad. But yeah, I totally forgot that like you said you were online coach. And I was like, yeah, that must have been really, really busy. Which I mean, I can remember the first few weeks after this pandemic, and on Instagram, everyone was posting at home workouts, and it was just just a whole thing. But you didn't have access to like you said, a treadmill or anything. How were you able to stay in shape other than just the walking? Did you figure out anything else? Like some people were using like water jugs, some people just a lot of inventive stuff. But what were you doing in order to keep yourself in shape before the gyms opened back up?
Well, I had like a couple things already at home. So like before, like, my dad had, like, a couple of, like, bands and stuff like that, and I had my own, like, booty bands, but when stuff started closing down, me and my boyfriend were just like, "We need to get fast." So, we were searching everywhere, I was looking online, calling places, seeing if they had stuff. If they had something, we just ran to that store, picked it up, got it right away. So, for myself, I actually was able to accumulate about I probably, like, one of those, curvy bars. I don't know what they're called.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, yeah.
It's not like an actual, like, barbell, but it's just one of those curvy ones. So I got one of those. I got some adjustable dumbbells and some plates. So I ended up getting about 90 pounds worth of like plates and stuff like that. And I'm a small person. Like I'm only like 5'3". So 90 pounds for me, like that's enough to do my whole entire body. And like I said, I wasn't training my legs, so didn't matter. I didn't need super, super heavy weight for that. And but I had one of those bands that you could put on the door and I could do like pull downs and stuff like that. Just did a ton of volume. Ton of volume, just keeping that heart rate up and just a ton of volume, just really focusing on the contracting the muscle and stuff like that. So
Was it like it was up down here a little bit where the prices got inflated because people were trying to take advantage of things, or were you able to get things somewhat at a good price?
I got things somewhat at a good price because, like I said, as soon as I heard that stuff was going on lockdown, I just went to the store like immediately and I just got whatever I could. And so I got decent prices. But when I tried to look again, I was just like, oh my God, they want this much for a treadmill? Like, it's used, it's like 10 years old. I'm like, no, I'm not spending a grand on that. You're crazy.
When people are charging more for like a 10-year used treadmill than they would for a new one pre-pandemic, I mean, it's like, yeah, that's a little extra right there. But were there any like meat shortages or food shortages up there? Because we dealt with a couple here, but was there anything going on up there?
Not too much. The only thing I did find was there was a lot of certain, like, weird things. I remember, like, sriracha was out, soy sauce, what else? Like, just, random
Toilet
spices,
paper.
toilet paper, yeah, paper towels, stuff like that. A lot of the baking stuff, and like I said, I was trying to get into baking more just because I had more time on my hands, and, like, for the life of me, I couldn't even find flour at one point. I was like, "What the hell?" But meat, not so much. Meat was okay, and I wasn't. It wasn't too bad, but it was just like random stuff, just little tiny things that you wouldn't even like things that you get once in a while. And I'm just like, "Why is this out?"
Yeah, I it really does make you wonder what people's priorities are, especially if you were to go into like a Target and like see what's missing, and you're like, if you're trying to survive in like a pandemic or anything like that, even though it's this, I'm gonna be honest, like this isn't like an Ebola outbreak or anything like that, where it's not gonna be as bad as people originally thought. It's still gonna be bad, but if you're gonna like try to survive during one of these, I'm pretty sure that the stuff that people were picking out is not gonna work. So that's why I kind of lost a little bit of faith in the human race's ability to survive like a really catastrophic event. Because I'm like, if this is what people are going for, hey, but at least it weeds out some of the dumb people, so I won't have to compete for food as much, later on. But hey, it's like, people, get your act together. Come on now, let's go here. But you mentioned mind to muscle connection. That's one thing that the general public, if you were to talk to them about, they wouldn't really understand. So I'm gonna pretend like I've never heard that because I've heard that like hundreds of times on this podcast. But could you explain what the mind to muscle connection is, as if I'd never heard that before?
Um, so basically when you're working out and you're trying to contract a muscle, that's what you're trying to do. You're contracting and releasing muscles. Just really if you want that like really, really hard contraction and really, really feeling it, that's kind of like your mind to muscle. So you're like kind of thinking about like so say you're doing like a lateral raise or something like that, you would really be thinking about your delt and how it looks and the shape of it and the way it's contracting almost in your head and not actually visually seeing it. That's why, like, a lot of people don't know how to do back workouts properly because you can't see your back and you can't see it moving. And that's why, as a beginner, you're looking in the mirror to really see how your body's moving because you're just not used to it, right? But for myself, I actually don't even really like looking in the mirror. And when I'm working out, I don't look in the mirror. I'm really just trying to focus on that mind muscle connection and almost visually see the muscle in my head contracting and doing the movement at the same time.
So you're the one bodybuilder that doesn't like looking in a mirror?
Yeah. I don't personally, it's not, I like, after I'm like done like a set or something, I like flexing and looking, but when I'm actually doing it, I find it very distracting. I find if I'm watching myself doing an exercise, I find it distracting and I lose focus of what I'm actually trying to do and so have that really good mind and muscle connection. So if I turn away,
Oh, I get it now. I thought you were talking about like if you're walking out a hallway and you saw a mirror, you'd be like, "Oh no, get away from me! Like hide,
oh
hide."
no,
Yeah, I hate looking at my no. Yeah, I was like, you picked kind of the wrong sport then if you really don't like walking. But no, yeah, I get what you're saying, and that's same with me too. Where like I would start laughing because I'd think that I'd be looking way too serious, like doing something. And even in college when I was working out, and if I was looking in a mirror, I just start laughing because I was like, God, this is don't stop looking so serious. Like you're in a gym working out, you're not like solving world hunger or anything. But yeah, I that's one thing too. So I guess we do have that in common. But you mentioned that you were changing up your posing a little bit. How do you think that you changed it up, and what was probably one of the bigger things that you changed up about your posing during this pandemic and lockdown?
You mean like just like like owning it?
You,
Like
well, you
what
well,
do
you
you mean?
said like you were working on it and stuff. Is there anything that like you
Oh,
tweaked and got and like improved on, or what would you say is one aspect that you think that you came out better? Because you said that you came out better than you came in. So in what way, for posing wise, do you think that you came out better than when you came in?
well, I just honestly just practiced every single day. I always felt a little bit wobbly on my feet, like I couldn't walk in heels. But I noticed I need certain things. I need certain vibes. So it's like it's a total different feeling when you step on stage than when you're at the gym and just looking in the mirror or something like that or practicing. So I really focused on again not practicing in the mirror, having that connection of how it actually feels because obviously you're not going to have a mirror when you're on stage. And if I couldn't do something right, I didn't just like push past it and do something else. I would do it until like I couldn't do it anymore. So for instance, like walking, I'm just like I just want to get my walk down. I want to like when I go and step on stage, I want it to just be like so flawless and effortless. So that was kind of like what I was trying to do is practicing every single day, really just trying to get that flow. And I'm like, man, I need music when I pose. I can't just pose and nothing be there. So I started like really listening to music, really feeling it, and like I found that when I had music on, my body flowed so much better than when I was just trying to show someone posing, you know? So I'm like, I need that vibe. I need that like, excitement and just finding a really, really good song, something that makes you feel, I guess, like for a girl, like sexy and like appealing is just like your hips just move differently when you pose and how you walk and how you present yourself. So
What's your go-to song that you like to use?
I like anything reggaeton. For that, like, sexy feeling, if that makes sense, but,
Yeah, obviously she's not going to be cranking like Metallica or anything like that when she's posing. If she's doing that, I was like, okay, you're competing in the wrong division, first of all. But no, and I totally agree. I mean, like there were times, especially being a pitcher in baseball. I mean, if I didn't have music going, or if I didn't, for me, it was like the sound of the crowd. Like if I didn't have that, even if it's like warm ups, it felt good, but it just feels different. So I think that somewhat compares at least to posing. So that's a positive thing. That I mean, yeah, having that anything that really helps you out, especially during these times. But one thing that I think, I mean, I won't say that it's a positive thing because we are in the middle of a pandemic, but one thing that I think is it could be helpful for people is the fact that being that you work with a lot of clients, one thing that you must have heard all the time is I'd love to get in shape, I just don't have the time for it, I just don't, I'm so busy and stuff. And it's like, no, you have the time. But first of all, if anyone uses that excuse now, I don't know what's going on in their life because so many people have so much more free time. But underneath, I think that time excuse is that a lot of people, I mean, everyone wants to get in better shape. I don't care who you ask. Even if you ask the thinnest supermodel on the planet, they still, oh, I could do a little bit better. But so many people just lack the knowledge on how to get in shape. And I think that's the number one barrier that prevents them from, taking that next step. But what advice would you give to someone who would walk up to you and say, hey, I really want to get in shape now that I have a little bit more free time. And, I've seen, first of all, that, being in better shape can really help you with this virus. It's vastly proved that you have a much better chance of coming out, unscathed if you're the healthier you are. But what advice would you have for people that are just looking to get started on something during this?
honestly, making yourself a schedule. I found scheduling being, like, the number one thing that even kept me going, like, Um, I think the number one thing I would tell someone is just stop thinking about it and just start. Whatever it is, just start. Don't overthink it. You're gonna suck. It's gonna be hard, but it's gonna be worth it in the end. Just start. Just whatever you're gonna do, just start. If you want to start online coaching, just go and apply. Just do it. Stop thinking about it. Just do it. A lot of people, they don't do anything because they're constantly just thinking, what should I be doing? Should I do this? Should I do that? Just do it. If it's constantly on your mind, you got to just go and do it. You can't keep thinking about it or putting it off. So, and that's the same with working out. If you're not feeling motivated and you're thinking about working out, stop thinking and just go pick up some weight, go to the gym, go do some freaking push ups on the ground, whatever you have access to, and start, because that's when the motivation is going to come. You don't wait to get motivated. The motivation comes when you start doing things.
I appreciate that more than probably anyone, just because I'm one of those people when I start working out. First of all, it's got to be at the right time. So if it's like if I plan on working out at 6 o'clock, it's got to be exactly 6 o'clock. And if I happen to be late, then I'm like, oh, it's got to be like a round number. So it's got to be like 6:10, 6:15, one of those. It's like I'm never gonna start at like 6:03 or 6:02 or 6:01. I'm one of those weird people where, yeah, if I'm late, even if it's like 6:01 and I'm about to get started, then I'm like, oh, now I gotta wait until it's like 6:10 or 6:05 or something like that. So then I just play a new song and I'll like go get fill up on water, do something like that. So I am weird like that. That's the only OCD thing about me, is like when it comes to starting working out, which is weird because every other thing in my life I could start at any time and it's, it's fine. But yeah, so I get that. And yeah, so many people, it's gonna suck the first 2 or 3 weeks that you do it. I'm not gonna lie. And then you start to get used to it. We have so many of those, wannabe Rambos that go in there and they train, for like 3 hours a day for like 3 straight days, and then they're like, oh, I'm done. I can't do it anymore. And I was like, yeah, because you you try to go everything gung ho. So yeah, just pace yourself and just start walking too. Because even if you don't have any gym equipment, go out and go for a walk, for God's sakes. If you have access to both of your legs, I mean, that's one of the healthiest things you can do, and it's free.
Yeah. And if you can start with body weight, like honestly, when I was a personal trainer, like a lot of people were just like, let's go do the squats and stuff like that. And I'm like, you don't even know how to squat body weight first. You got to start from there. So, like, if you're a beginner, you could do everything at home and progress immensely until you even hit the gym. And then when you get to the gym, it's going to be even better. Like, that's what I would tell people when they're starting with me. I'm like, you're going to do so good. Like, 'cause you're starting off with just doing the basics. And that's what everyone fails at doing. They try to, do a PR on a deadlift when they've never even picked up a weight before. So,
Yeah. Well, I gotta say, also, you could also go gung ho with that, because I had a guest on where he did like hundreds of push ups, pull ups, and sit ups every single day. He bruised one of his ribs because he was literally working out too much, where he was going so hard. And I was like, dude, you gotta tone it down a little bit. Because it was like 700, 800 of each, like every day that he would try to do. And he would do it like all throughout the day. So he'd do like sets of like 20, like 35 different sets, where he'd do one set of each, and then he'd take like a 20-minute break, and then he'd come back and do it. And it was like constant. And I was like, that's really crazy. Like, I don't know what's going, but hey, it's what kept him sane. But yeah, you gotta watch out for that too. But Stephanie, if we were to have you on a year from today, and we will have you on a year from today, we're not going to wait as long as we did right now. But again, I asked this question with care, because if I were to have you on a year ago today and ask you, what do you think is going to happen the next year? Where would you like to be at? If you would have predicted a global pandemic, I would have bet my entire life savings against it. So, it shows that hindsight really is 2020. But and again, if, who knows, if we talk a year from now, there might be a fire going on in the back. You might hear gunshots in the back. Who knows what the future is going to be like, the way that it's been going now. But if we were to talk to you a year from today, where would you like to be at in your bodybuilding? Where would you like to be at in your personal training? Just in your overall life, what are some goals that you would like to have achieved if we were to talk to you a year from today?
yeah, so I write down my goals, and one of them is definitely being an IFBB pro. That is something that I'm always going to want, and I want to put it in the universe. I want to be an IFBB pro. Um, Whenever that's going to be, if it's in the next year, it will be, but that is something that's definitely going to happen for my future. I know it. And then for personal, like, and my career wise, eventually I would want a bigger part in the company that I'm working for, and just have more direction on where it's going, and maybe be like the head of nutrition, because I love nutrition.
Well, I gotta ask now. First of all, what's probably one of the biggest mistake that you find that people, the average person, makes when it comes to their nutrition?
um, that's
I
hard.
know that's a heavy question, because there are like dozens of things that people do wrong. But yeah.
Okay. People thinking that they can just outsmart, not outsmart, but outwork a bad diet and they just don't pay attention to the calories they're consuming. And I'm sorry, at the end of the day, it is calories in versus calories out. Doesn't matter if you're doing keto, low carb, high carb, um, veganism, whatever it is, it's still like, even if you're doing like fasting, it's still calories in versus calories out. You have to track if you want to see some progression happening. If you're trying to eat intuitively, that is what you've been doing your whole entire life. How has that worked out for you? Right? So you can't be intuitive when you have big goals of fat loss or, muscle gain. You have to be more precise with it. So you have to be tracking those controllable variables, and you can track your macros. So that's what flexible dieting is. So calories in versus calories out. You cannot outwork it. You cannot escape it. No one's immune. No one. Doesn't matter if you have a disease either. No one's immune to this.
Well, I will say though, there is one outlier to those, and that's like when I was starting at Amazon and when I went to UPS, and there were like 8 to 10 hour shifts of loading packages just in the trucks, where you'd go sometimes, packages up to like 150 pounds. That's the one variable, because literally I could eat 10 straight pounds of butter after that and I wouldn't gain an ounce because I've worked my butt off for. That's the one we had people there where I'm like the only. I even told them, because then I got promoted to manager, and I even told them the only crappy part about this job is that you're going to spend so much money on food because you're going to be so hungry afterwards. Yeah. But yeah. No, yeah, unless you're like doing a manual labor job where you're working that hard, where literally I did a thing and I was burning, like 4,000 calories. Yeah, yeah.
If you want to gain muscle,
Yep,
it's still thermodynamics of the
absolutely.
calories you're consuming in, right? So
Mhm.
if you weren't gaining weight and you wanted to gain muscle or maintain your body weight, you'd still have to pay attention to those nutrients and how much you're consuming and how much you're outputting, right? So those are still the things, and those are still the driving factors of any sort of diet.
Oh yeah, you're not going to get in shape even if you burn as much as we did. If you were just going to eat like Snickers bars and drink Cokes afterwards, it's not gonna happen. So yeah, you still have to worry about your diet, but it does give you a tad bit more leeway, which I liked, where you could cheat a little bit more than normal. But yeah, it's just. But again, the job that I did is something that only 0.00001% of the population does these days, because no one really does hard labor jobs really anymore. So it's just totally different. But yeah, and again, well, I asked this question to you last time and I'll ask it to you again, and we'll see if your answer is the same, because I do remember your answer because I watched our podcast last night. If you could change one thing about the sport of bodybuilding and everyone would go along with it, what would be one thing that you'd like to see changed?
Um, I would probably say that I would want people to just be real um about what they actually are doing and how they're getting there. Um I just feel like there's a lot of fallacies in that, and people are just, I don't know, they're fake. They're a little bit fake.
Have you seen my two podcasts that I did with bodybuilders where we just talked about steroids the entire time?
No.
I'll send you links to them because they're really, really good. Like they're upfront and honest about like everything they take, and we talk about like what it's. I should, because you should see those because they're really. But I agree with you 1,000% on that. My biggest pet
Or
peeve.
fitness industry. Like,
Yes,
I don't like the quick fixes.
yes. My biggest pet peeve. I mean, I understand why some people can't talk about. Like I've had nurses on here and doctors, and they're like, if I admitted on your show that I did something, then like I get fired probably because it is illegal, and they if anyone saw this, so I understand that 100%, and I never bring it up or ask it to anyone because it's none of my business. But my one pet peeve are those people that obviously, and you can tell from some people that they're just shredded to the gills, and they're like, there's no humanly way that that's possible without doing something, and they have this program where like, oh, you can look just like me, and like 90 days, like P90X thing or whatever, and I'm like, what? Come on, really? Like, it's like you're just misleading people. And yeah, it's so much full of fake people too, where it's like people just think that if after they compete for one show, they are all of a sudden qualified to be your advice on nutrition and just everything. And yeah, I would do a drastic overhaul if I had the all knowing power of changing this industry. So that's why I like to do this podcast and just help bring that out to people. So it's unfortunately it's still around, but I do think it's gotten a little bit better. But it's still got a long way to go before I think it gets to a point where people really, really see, a positive change in this industry.
Yeah. And I guess one thing I would like to add is kind of what you were talking about, like someone does a show and then they automatically think that they are a nutritionist or a personal trainer and they can just advise people on things. Sort of in that realm, just people just wanting quick fixes. I just want to get that by just because I don't think if any program is telling you that you can get shredded in this many weeks or you can gain this much muscle mass in this many weeks, just run away. There's no such thing as a quick fix, and bodybuilding is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So
And again, if it does work though, give me that guy's name and number because I'll give him a call and I'll spend my entire life savings on it. But just know that 99.999 repeating about 10,000 more nines, it's not gonna happen. But I am waiting for that one time where it does happen, and then I'm just like, okay, finally. I don't have to work out as much and I can just, look great. But yeah, it's not the case now. But again, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming back on and giving us an update. And everyone, go and give her a follow on her Instagram page. I'll leave a link down below to that. And if you have any questions or looking for online training, she's more than happy to help you out. So give her a message on that too. But again, Stephanie, thank you so much for coming back on. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope things get better up there with the pandemic like they might here, who knows, after this winter. But again, thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
thank you. It was awesome.
Absolutely. Well, everyone, this is Ryan Johnson, DD on the spot, signing out. Have a great day, everyone.